That would have been good. Sorry we didn't do that. Yeah, so I'm recording now, I think. Let's back here.
No, I'm okay with that one not being recorded.
Okay, so let's see. So there we go.
Rachel, about how many hours does the project of that magnitude take you?
Oh my goodness. So I met with the subject matter expert probably about 5 to 6 times for about an hour and a half to 2 hours each time. And then I did all of the data analysis outside of that. So he was able to send me the Excel file with all of the data that I needed, and it maybe took a couple hours of just playing around to get the regression analyses and all the other charts.
Nice.
So let's see. I'm gonna try. I'm not exactly sure which project might be the best to sort of demonstrate, but I'm just going to go to our blood data project. You guys are at least slightly familiar with that. So if I look at my blood data, so right now I've got my glucose level, I've got my order priority, and I've got hours of the day. And we're just going to sort of pretend that this stuff makes sense. But Brittany, when you're, I know you're doing pivot tables, right, to try to look for different relationships. And I'm just going to be real blunt, sort of right up front with you. I am terrible at pivot tables. I don't quite get them. I don't quite understand them. There are people that are wizards with pivot tables.
I love pivot tables.
Yeah, see, if you're one of those people, God bless you, go for it, right? Because it can pull out and really it's just making data more visible and relationships more visible, and I think it's good for that. But essentially, when you're doing regression, what you want is you want your observations in the far left-hand column, right? So if let's sort of talk about your particular case. So what are your individual observations?
This is where I'm having a hard time putting it.
Yeah, oh, I know. So
I mean, my observations, I guess, would be the invoices per check. So Robert, I'm not sure. So my project was basically with accounts payable and accounts receivable, and we were sending out bills and invoices to other departments, and we were getting their checks in, their payments, and it wasn't being posted. So on the next invoice, it didn't show the payment and their total. Some of them were getting up into the millions of dollars, even though they had been paying us consistently. So the observations, I guess, would be the invoices, and then what is one of the determining factors is the coding per invoice. There can be multiple accounting lines, and that's where the different timing comes in on finding the coding per accounting line.
So we would have, like, and I'm just going to maybe just sort of create it right here, right? So I'm going to have a column which all the different invoices that you have, right? And these would be your observations. And then for each invoice, what would the data columns look like? So number of line items on an invoice?
Yeah, the coding lines, I guess.
Okay, so coding lines. Right. And is this data that you've already got? So like on the invoice, do you know like what the date is and things like that, or no?
So even before that is the actual check that comes in, and it can have multiple invoices on it, or it can just be one invoice.
I'd say check invoices. And this is like number of them, right?
Yeah.
So I would have the invoice, the number of coding lines, how many
invoices per check.
Yeah, how many invoices per check, and then what other data do you have?
I mean, those are the three biggest ones, and then it was just how long it was taking each one to do.
Okay, and so this would be your Y value, right?
Okay.
So let's call this like cycle time, right, if you will. And I'm just gonna try to do this here. Let's see. So I'm gonna do this. So 46, command copy. So I'm just gonna try to create something that looks like your data here.
Okay.
Right, and then I've got, let's see, let's take this. So let's just say the, whoop. So we'll just say that's the number of lines of code. We got 1, 2. So these are the numbers of the invoices you have. And it looks like I messed up on a paste. Oop. I have no idea where it just sent me there, but let me get back to where I was. Okay. And since we got a lot of data down here at the end, let's see if I can do this. Just take this again. Oh, let's see, I'm still having trouble with this guy here. That's what I wanted. I wanted. So this is your lesson here from this little experience so far. Make sure you do all this editing in Excel because it's just a son of a gun if you have to do it in Engine Room, okay? So, let me just get some more.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question. I just got confused by the emails and I just saw it. Do you want?
I am online with a bunch of people, but what would you like to say, Leah?
Hello. I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm sorry.
Can I get you later? Okay, that's all right. Yeah. Boy, those darn students coming in at 10 after 6. You got to worry about them. So now we've got sort of the data set up. How we might set it up. So I'm gonna do save changes, right? And I'm gonna go analyze, and I want regression analysis, and I'm gonna do multiple regression. And so here's my little thing. So I'm gonna go into the blood data, and let's see. So we've got the cycle time, right? Is going to be what we want your response variable to be, right? So we're trying to, predict the cycle time. So that's our Y variable, right? Is a response variable.
Okay.
Then I've got number of coding lines is going to be one independent variable, and the number of check invoice numbers is going to be another. And I'm going to wind up with this kind of output that I'm looking at, right? So this is real, similar to the stuff that Rachel had, right? So I've got my cycle time, I've got my y-intercept, then I've got the equation essentially, or the prediction equation for coding lines plus the number of invoices. I'm looking down here at this. So this is the thing we're sort of talking about. You're looking for the p-values. And I would look at that first, and what this is telling me, since the p-values are all above 0.05, neither one of these is significant in predicting, what your Y value is, which is the cycle time, right?
Okay.
So this was just, and we wouldn't expect that because we just threw garbage numbers in there, right, to predict.
Right.
But hopefully you've got, real numbers and that are predicting. Let's see. The other thing that I would do, and Rachel, this is something that gets you in sort of the more complex multiple regression type situation, is I'm curious about whether there's any interaction effects of these two columns. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that might look like. So, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there. So if I go in here and look at this, I'm gonna copy this stuff and put it into Command copy, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it into Excel. File, new. But I don't want to do that. Cancel that. Let's close this. Close that. File, new workbook. There we go. So I'm just going to go ahead. Let's pop this up to 200 so you can see it. And I'm just going to do Command V. So I just put this data in here. And I like to have it sort of lined up on the side here. And let's do wrap text. So this stuff is on there. All right. So one thing that I would do is I'm going to insert a row here. And I'm going to put, what should I call this? Code by invoice code by invoice. So what I'm looking for is I want an interaction term. So the interaction between the number of lines of code and the number of check invoices. I'm particularly interested in that because I think you're really not interested in, well, my suspicion is it's not really just the number of coding lines or the number of check invoices, or although it might be, but it might be that the time takes is when those things are interacting in some way to cause you problems, right? And so I'm going to look for the interaction, and to look for that interaction, I'm just going to multiply those two together. So what I've just done is I've just multiplied these two things together, and I put this in as another variable. So that's now sort of in there. And so anytime I've got two variables, I can multiply together to make a third variable. If you wanted a three-way interaction, you can multiply three variables together, right? That might be another way you could do this. So I'm just going to take this. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cheat and just take the one because I don't know how to paste into Engine Room. And I'm going to go back to Engine Room, and I'm going to put this column here. All right, so now I have my interaction between those two variables is in my table. I'm going to go ahead and save changes. And I'm going to go back to my regression. And I'm going to put that interaction into my regression, okay? So now what I have is I have the main effects of code lines, the main effects of the number of checks or invoices on a check, and then I also have the interaction of the code lines and the number of invoices per check is in there as a term, and then I'm coming down and had it been like real data, I'd be able to see like, well, is the main effect of code line significant? Is the main effect of checks, number of check or invoices per check significant? And then I could also say, is the interaction between the number of code lines and invoices per check, is that significant, right? And that's like the multiple regression that I would think would be most appropriate for your case, Brittany.
Okay.
And I would expect to see something maybe like this when you do your things. Does that make sense? Or you have questions?
Yeah, that's a lot more helpful.
Okay. Anything else from you, Rachel or Robert, about how this works or what this might look like? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes great sense.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, get your stuff. So the basic process is get into Excel, get it into that basic format. Clean up your data first in Excel. Look for, maybe plot it. Look for outliers. Question as to whether you really want to include it, and then move it over into Engine Room. Once it's in Engine Room, doing this is pretty easy. I would also. One of the things you want to look at is when you first come on, you'll see this sort of setup thing. But since we've already got data in here, you can see it now. So use best subsets, right? And you can run it with it off. And with it off, it's going to force everything into the model, right? So with it off, and it's off, and we're going to save changes, and we're going to run it. It's going to go give you this model up here that you see right here, even though it's crap, right? And it's crap because none of the values are significant, right? So this is where we talk about, statistics. Statistics is basically stupid, right? We can calculate a regression equation that is really meaningless because if you interpret this stuff down here, it says that these things are not significant. It's essentially telling you don't use that regression equation to predict cycle time, right? But if you go in here and you do minimize or use best subsets, you turn that on and you save changes. What it'll do is it'll tell you that, what it's saying here is the best predictor of cycle time is just use the average cycle time.
Oh.
Right? And the average cycle time is 56 minutes. Don't worry about counting number of lines of invoices. Don't count, because none of those things showed up as significant with a p-value, right? So they all disappeared, right? So what that clicking that best subsets button does for you is it saves you from maybe making some stupid mistakes of including things that you shouldn't include. Okay, and I think Rachel on yours it would have dropped. Well, let's see. So you would have got no equation for that 0.08 one, right?
Yep.
And the other ones it would still give you the same answer that you had before. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I think that's it for tonight. Any other questions or concerns from you guys?
No, just once I get this together, can I share it with you to make sure I'm doing it right?
Yeah. No. I'd be happy to do that, and we can either do that privately over Zoom, or we can invite your two cohort people to see what's going on. But we'll make that optional for them. Okay, Brittany?
Thank you.
All right. I have to be there, but they don't have to. All right. Okay, so we all set. So you guys are good to go for the final exam. Did you guys check and see if you have access to the final exam on Morstein?
It shows up.
It shows up. Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys are good to take that. Do you guys have a plan for when you're going to take that at this point?
I thought you said I was doing like 2 weeks at the 17th, right? At our last time.
Yeah, if that's still good for you, right? That's my preferred. I was so. Brittany, you and Rachel going to take it by the 17th. Robert, are you in, or you're going to need to postpone?
I'm gonna need to get back to you. I'm either got to take it before then because I said I had that military training, or I'm gonna have to take it after.
Okay, all right. But you're like I said, I'll give you that flexibility. If it's going to be after the 17th, just send me an email and pick a date so I can, at least have a little bit of visibility and track you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good deal. Okay, that's it for tonight. See you guys at some point in the future, I hope. So, so take care, and it's been a nice class. And if if at any time related to this topic area, this is what I do. This is what I live and breathe. Having every once in a while answering questions about the real world helps me keep current. So I'm more than happy to do that for you guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. See you around. Bye-bye.
Take care now.